Hello and welcome to Mystic Visions with Dr. Shiny. This is a daily pick a card reading for January the 8th. So if you are new to pick a card readings, the way this works is that you'll choose from one of the three piles here, and then once you've made your choice, you'll scroll down to the description and find the timestamp corresponding to your selection, and it will skip ahead in the video to your reading. Now, this is a daily reading. It is made to give you a little general advice for the day or to guide your overall focus. If you're looking for an even more general reading, there are general readings for each star sign on my page, so please check those out. Now, I have added 3 crystals here to aid in your selection. I have Adventurine, and I'll hold these up. This is Adventurine. This is a blue agate, dyed blue agate. And then this one is Labradorite, and it has a wonderful shine to it. There you go. Okay, so I'm going to give you about 30 seconds to meditate, if you wish, on your choice. Once you have your choice in mind, go ahead and scroll down to the description and find the timestamp for your particular reading. So let's go ahead and begin the 30 seconds now. Okay, so if you have not already done so, please go ahead and make your choice and scroll down to the description to find the timestamp for your selection. Okay, so we're going to begin with pile number 1. If you chose Adventurine, this will be for you. So you have the 9 of coins in the reverse, then the Queen of coins, and the 2 of wands. Okay? And actually I'm going to kind of swap these around so that you can see the cards laying on the table. Okay, so to start things off, this 9 of coins, it can mean that you have a little bit of determination. There is this need to not get distracted or sometimes to not really enjoy the fruits of your labors, but to stay a little bit more of like a workaholic, or to essentially have a greater focus on success and achievement rather than sitting back and enjoying the fruits of that labor. Pardon me. So the idea here is that while there is an opportunity for you to kind of sit back and take it all in, take in what you've accomplished and enjoy yourself, you're resisting that, and instead you're staying focused and determined, and that is where it kind of borders on sort of like workaholic tendencies or something to that effect. So crossing you is the Queen of Coins, and the Queen of Coins is a really good, she's good at saving, she's good at investing, but in a way that is not necessarily going out there and starting new businesses or things like that. She's good at that, but in one way or another, she's good at keeping her financial affairs in order, and also inspiring others to have a good grasp on the material. So she strikes me as a little bit of a materialist, but now when I say materialist, a lot of people get the wrong idea, especially in the West, because we kind of tend to say that this is a materialistic society, modern society, and it's not, because true materialism is like a love of the material, an appreciation for the material, and we, on the other hand, tend to devalue material and basically only value material for its utility, right? So, for example, the newest smartphone comes out and you just have to have it and you throw the other one out regardless of whether it works well or not. It's like the newest and greatest has this extra premium, and things are just devalued as you've had them for a long time. On the contrary, a materialist might grow more fond of some possession the longer that he has it, because it's done him well. It has been a good service or companion, right? So this queen, where am I going with that? This queen of coins is challenging you to, instead of simply get all of your mental energy focused on earning money or financial assets, that type of thing. She's challenging you to understand the purpose of it. So she's also like a really good nester. So she creates this environment for a child or something to nurture, and she's very resourceful in using the material for good purposes, or helping others, or feeding others, making sure they're provided for, taken care of. So she's a person who very, very much understands the purpose of wealth, of the physical, and instead of just being obsessed with the obtaining of the wealth. So this is a challenge for you here to kind of understand this, to understand the difference between money and wealth, right? And there's a wonderful definition of a cynic, and I forget the playwright who originally said this, but he said that a cynic is a man who knows, or woman, who knows the value of, or I'm sorry, the price of everything, but the value of nothing, right? So that kind of gives you an idea of what I'm talking about here. You have to be able to convert your winnings, your money, your earnings into something of real value, and not just something that has price or some intangible value. You can't eat money, for example. So you have to focus on what the money allows you to do or obtain. Okay, so advice for the situation here is the Two of Wands. So what this is saying is, even though this reading is telling you to focus more on what money can accomplish rather than just the raw obtaining, it is not so much an invitation for you to go out and spend your money haphazardly or to go waste it. So this is asking you to plan on how you want to spend your money. So in other words, take a step back and ask yourself, what do you want to accomplish with this money? Like, is there some societal change that you would like to see, and do you have the power to enact that? How can you effectively utilize your funds to be able to make something happen in the world that you care deeply about? And this doesn't just mean, saving up for your grandchildren or something like that, because there's this funny thing called inflation that has a way of attacking the value of anything you might pass down to your kids. So it's more valuable for you to pass down good values and good strategies for getting through life so that those kids can apply it and earn their own wealth, right? So just keep that in mind, and devote a little bit of time into figuring out, what do you want to do with the money that you earn with your wealth, right? And that also will cause more abundance in your wealth, because if you're more focused on the reason, if you're visualizing yourself with the wealth and what you're doing with the wealth, it's a much more powerful way of focusing your subconscious in order to obtain what you're actually after. So if you're just after huge piles of money, what is that? That's nothing. You're after nothing. You're after an illusion, right? But if you are after some tangible thing that you want to accomplish with that money, it's a lot more powerful in priming your subconscious for you to be successful, and to allow your subconscious to work towards your goals rather than just throwing its hands up because it doesn't know what you want, right? Okay, so that's about it for the card number 1. All right, we are going to move on to card number 2. And card number 2, if you chose this blue agate, this one's for you. So you have the Queen of Cups in the reverse. Another reversed queen. You have the Chariot in the reverse. And the Emperor in the reverse. Now, so if you are not new to this room, you'll know I have a personal rule when I read the tarot cards. Anytime a reading comes up with all reversed figures, I will flip them all right side up. And there are several reasons for that. One of them is because it just actually, in my experience, tends to be more accurate when I do that. The other is it's just a more positive way of basically looking at the same message, but with a more optimistic outlook, so to speak. So what we have for you is this Queen of Cups. So Queen of Cups is really good at, she deals with her emotions. She understands her emotions. She feels them. She doesn't fight them. She doesn't suppress. She allows herself to feel these emotions and doesn't necessarily fight them. But they also don't get out of control so much because she knows how to manage them. So there's a difference in not feeling emotions or being emotionless and being able to fully feel emotions and yet still maintain stability or a semblance of control. And I say a semblance of control because in order for you to really tap into this, you have to kind of realize there is no ultimate control, or that you don't have the ability to control them. So you have to essentially kind of swim with the current, right? So it's kind of like, they say in car accidents, a person who's a drunk driver has a tendency to come out of an accident a little bit with less injury because he's so out of it. He doesn't tense up before the accident. He doesn't see it coming. He's not alert. And because he doesn't tense up, his muscles give way loosely, and he's somewhat protected by that looseness instead of tightening up or becoming rigid, because when something is rigid, it can really only break. But when something is loose, it's able to go with the flow, it's able to bend, and it's able to endure more stress than it would if it were entirely rigid. So this queen is very much a master of that lesson. She is asking you to, or you're in a situation where you're being asked to find that sort of fluidity, to figure out a way to not have to have everything exactly the way that you want it, but to go with the flow, to bend, but not necessarily to get completely out of the way, right? So there's a way that, because that would just be suppression. Somebody is cutting you off, it doesn't mean that you have to just completely act like nothing happened. You can show your anger, but in such a way that is reserved or proportionate to the event. So you don't want people to walk all over you, but you don't want to fly off the handle and really cause a huge stir, right? So this is that Queen of Cups emotion. She has the ability to sort of utilize these emotions, and she's also really in touch with her intuition because she doesn't sort of reject the unknown, which involves a loss of control. She is able to listen and hear things from her intuition to a higher degree. And so she has a strength with that. She doesn't have to know everything that's going on to have an intuitive sense of what's going on around her, and to be able to navigate situations with a little bit of dexterity, even not having all of the knowledge, right? So yeah, this is advice for you to be a little bit flexible, be a person who is able to not fight off or deny the emotions that you're feeling, but to let them kind of flow through you and release them before they become too much to handle. So it's better to, be a little bit short with somebody right away than to save up a bunch of anger and then just blow up at somebody. Your crossing energy or challenging you here is the Chariot. So there's a need for you to kind of pick a direction, to recognize your accomplishments. The Chariot is very much involved with being accomplished, but also just sort of like leaving the home base. So this isn't like a grand achievement of life where you've finally made it where you wanted to end up, or you've got the job, the dream job that you always wanted, that type of thing. It's not quite there. It's that you've made a couple initial successes, initial victories, and now it's time for you to sort of put the victory into further action to choose a direction from then on. The way I always envision this is like a teenager who is working really hard to save up to buy a car, and he's not even thinking about what he wants to do with that car, and he's not thinking about the career he wants to have, his family, or anything. All he knows is he wants a car, but that car is really just a jumping off point to something else, to another part of his life. So the Chariot kind of embodies this to me, especially, thinking of my own chariot, my own first chariot, right? So, in this card, the guy is typically on his way headed out away from the city, and it's supposedly this the city of his birth, where he has kind of mastered his home environment, and now he's ready to go out into the world and play on a bigger playing field. So this is a challenge for you today, because while maintaining that sort of emotional balance and everything, it's also necessary for you to be assertive and to figure out a way to let others know, to signal what you're after, because they've got to know, or you're never going to get it, right? So you have to be able to stand up for yourself and to control your emotions, because everybody's fighting that rat race, right? So if you let people get on your nerves a little too much, it can be counterproductive. It can knock you back a peg instead of keeping you propelled on the journey that you are personally headed down. So be careful with that, right? So think hard about where you're trying to get, what you're trying to do. I remember one time I was working at a restaurant, and a fellow server was so angry with a rude customer that he just threw his server book that had all of the money that he'd made for that night at the computer and just left it sitting there. And I chased behind him with the book, and I said, "Look, buddy, take care of this thing. Don't leave this behind, because all that frustration that you're going through, the only reason you're here doing it at all is because you're wanting to make the money. So it's not worth throwing the money away. Why would you get so offended or upset that you would allow it to mess with your coins, And he thanked me, and we went on from there. But that's the general idea. Remember why you're doing this. Remember why you're there in the first place is really what it's about. Okay, so advice for the situation here is the Emperor. And the Emperor, this is some masculine energy, but the Emperor primarily, in this case, I think it surrounds setting boundaries and being assertive, and not bending, not capitulating and letting others walk all over you, but instead standing your ground and making sure that you're not passive in the environment around you. You've got to be able to inject your will into the situation a little bit, even if you don't want to be totally domineering or something like that. You've got to be able to do it a little bit. You got to have a little bit of a hard head sometimes to be able to get things done, or to get people to respect you even. It's and everything has a balance about it. So this may be something more difficult for you, but just realize that you don't necessarily have to completely go down this path. But it's kind of like one of my favorite things to say. It's like the salt in a stew. You have to have a little bit of it there, or it's just gross. The whole thing is ruined if you don't have just a little bit of that salt in that stew. But if you put too much in there, then it completely ruins it as well. So it's the type of thing where it's absolutely intolerable for there not to be just a little bit of it there. So that's about it for card number 2. Stick up for yourself. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and move on to card number 3. So card number 3, if you chose the Labradorite, also called Spectralite sometimes. one of my favorite stones too. So you have, let me think. Okay, I pulled it this way. So you have the 8 of wands in the upright, the 4 of coins, and the inverted Knight of Cups. Okay, so your 8 of wands here suggests something has happened, right? There is an action, or something is going to happen, depending on when you watch this. But for this day, something out of the ordinary, kind of a shock to the system, a surprise, right? There is in this, these wands are all sort of pointed toward the ground. They are crashing down, and it's like something's happening, and it doesn't really specify what, because that's kind of the whole point here, is there's this surprise, this shock, something that was unexpected, or at least if it was expected, you didn't necessarily expect it to be today, right? There's some thing going on here which kind of throws you for a loop, and it's generally necessary for you to sort of ride the wave in this situation. So don't let it catch you so off guard that you freeze up or something like that, but instead be willing to kind of roll with the punches and figure out the best way for you to proceed through this event. Okay, so the 4 of coins is what's challenging you or crossing you. So this can mean that you may have like a tendency to want to cling to your money or your wealth. So this is the challenge of this situation. So something may happen where it becomes necessary for you to spend a little money or do something fun or spontaneous or something like that that you normally kind of wouldn't want to, because maybe you've been on a tight budget, or you've been pinching pennies, or you just, for some reason, there is a solution at work here that involves being a little bit more open with your finances, and it's going to be a challenge for you to kind of give that up a little bit, to let go and to actually let the finances flow here. Or it could just indicate that you're not going to want to spend the money. You're going to want to take the cheap road. And if you end up in that sort of a situation where there's an option between kind of doing it better and a little bit more expensive versus taking like a cheap way out, or temporarily rigging something instead of fixing it correctly, you're going to want to go for the more robust way in this situation. You're not going to want to skimp. That's going to be probably something that doesn't work out for you so well in the long run. And what's your advice card is the Knight of Cups in the reverse. So Knight of Cups is typically very romantic, very go with the flow type of individual. And in this situation, it's a resistance to that type of an energy because of the reverse of this card. So what that means, again, going back to that 8 of wands, what I said was that you're going to want to flow with this energy, flow with this change, rather than to resist it. And this is enforced by your advice card here with the Knight of Cups. It is not resisting that flow, but instead recognizing that this may be something inevitable, that you gotta just kind of deal with it. You gotta let go, and you've gotta figure out the best solution in the situation by moving forward instead of just simply getting upset or focusing on the problem. And that knight is really good at wiggling his way through some sticky situations. He has a command of the emotions. His domain is the emotions, so he's able to sort of silence the emotions that are not serving him. I would say one of the ways he's a little less emotionally mature than the king or the queen is that sometimes this can be borderline suppression with this knight. He's able to just sort of block out the things that are not serving him, and he's got a lot more of a short-term, pointed, quick approach to dealing with emotions, and it's not as long-term. So he has a tendency to sort of bury things temporarily instead of letting them work out fully in their time. So again, in this resistance position, you're just you're gonna want to make this thing work in the more long term, and not just look for that sort of quick fix. You're not going to want to look for that, resist that sort of quick fix, resist the suppression of any sort of feelings, and instead kind of work through them the right way. Go for quality in this situation. You know, if an option presents itself, and if you don't seem to see an option, step back for a second and ask, is there a better way to handle this? You know, because it's possible that you're going to see some resistance to whatever this is that's occurring. Now, you know, normally I get more general advice. This one is oddly specific, so I hope whatever that situation is works out for you. But if not, if you're struggling with it, please come back and ask me, and I'll draw a couple more cards and we'll get some clarification for you. Okay, so that's about it for today's reading. And thank you all for watching, and I will see you again tomorrow for the next daily reading.